Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into a darkness so vast it seems endless. What would you feel there? Curiosity? Or perhaps the pull of something greater than yourself? The abyss is more than just emptiness. It is one of the deepest symbols in human history, a mysterious void that has fascinated philosophers, mystics, and seekers of truth for centuries. To the Stoics, it was a test of courage. To the mystics, it was the bridge to the divine. To modern psychology, it is the hidden depths of our unconscious mind. But here's the paradox. The abyss is not simply a place of despair. It is also a crucible of transformation. In its silence and darkness lies the potential for awakening, for the discovery of truths that can only be found when we dare to descend. Throughout history, great minds have wrestled with this idea. Some saw the abyss as the terrifying reminder of life's lack of meaning. Others saw it as the very doorway to freedom. And you, what do you think? Would you dare to face the abyss within yourself? Because here's the truth. Only by confronting it do we begin to uncover who we really are. But this is only the beginning. The abyss does not leave anyone untouched. For some, it's despair. For others, it's freedom. And two of the boldest voices in philosophy, Søren Kierkegaard and Friedrich Nietzsche, stood face to face with it. Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism, believed the abyss reveals a terrifying truth: we are free, utterly free. And with freedom comes anxiety, because every choice we make defines us. He described it as the sickness unto death, that gnawing despair when you realize no one else can choose your life for you. So what was his answer? A leap of faith. Not blind religion, but a radical decision to commit yourself to something greater than fear. For Kierkegaard, it meant trusting that life can have meaning despite the uncertainty, despite the void. It's not a leap into certainty, it's a leap into courage. But Nietzsche, he stared into the same abyss and saw something very different. He warned us. When you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. To him, the void wasn't just about despair, it was a challenge. A challenge to create meaning when none is given. Nietzsche saw the abyss as the birthplace of the Übermensch, the higher self that rises above conventional values, invents new ones, and affirms life even in the face of chaos. For him, the way out of nothingness was not faith, but power, the will to shape life as if it were your own work of art. Two men, two paths. One leaps into faith. The other wrestles with the void until new values emerge. And yet both agree on something crucial: you cannot escape the abyss. You must face it. The only question is, how will you face yours? But philosophy is only one lens. The abyss also takes center stage in the most widely read book in human history, the Bible. From the very first verses of Genesis, the Bible begins with the abyss. Before the world was shaped, before light was spoken into existence, there were the primordial waters of chaos, a deep, formless void. And over that dark expanse, the Spirit of God moved. Think about that for a second. Creation itself begins with the abyss, not as an enemy to destroy, but as raw potential to be shaped into order. But the story doesn't end there. In the Old Testament, the abyss is tied to the sea, mysterious, terrifying, a place humans cannot conquer. It's where monsters dwell, where the unknown stirs. Later, Jewish tradition saw it as the underworld, the shadowy domain of the dead, a place where rebellious spirits were cast down. By the time of the New Testament, the abyss takes on an even darker role. In the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus casts demons out of a man, the spirits beg him not to send them back into the abyss. And in Revelation, it becomes the prison of Satan himself, locked away for 1,000 years before the final judgment. Do you see the pattern? The abyss in Scripture is both a place of terror and of transformation. It is the symbol of ultimate chaos, but also the proof that even chaos lies under divine authority. And yet hidden inside this imagery is something more personal. The Psalms describe deep calls unto deep, the soul crying out to God in the middle of suffering. The abyss, then, is not just a place out there. It is also the depth of human pain, despair, and longing. A place where the soul yearns for meaning, for redemption, for connection with the divine. So whether it is demons cast into the sea or your own heart crying out in darkness, the abyss becomes the stage where transformation begins. But what if we leave theology and enter the world of storytelling, because literature too has turned the abyss into one of its most haunting and powerful symbols? The abyss isn't just a philosophical or religious idea, it's a story we've told ourselves for centuries. Writers, poets, and storytellers have used it as a mirror of the human soul, a way to capture our deepest fears and our greatest longings. Take Dante's Divine Comedy. His journey begins by descending into the inferno, a literal abyss of sin, despair, and punishment. But here's the twist. The deeper he goes, the more he learns about redemption. For Dante, the abyss isn't the end. It's the beginning of transformation. Centuries later, Joseph Conrad gave us Heart of Darkness. On the surface, it's a tale of traveling into the Congo, but really it's about plunging into the darkest corners of the human psyche. The jungle becomes the abyss, a place where the thin layer of civilization is stripped away, and the raw brutality of human nature emerges. And then there's H.P. Lovecraft. He didn't just write about fear, he invented an entirely new kind of fear, cosmic horror. In his stories, the abyss is not just a pit or a cave, it's the universe itself, vast, indifferent, unknowable. When his characters glimpse it, they don't just tremble. They often go mad, realizing how small, how utterly insignificant we are in the face of infinite darkness. Do you feel the escalation? From Dante's moral descent to Conrad's psychological collapse to Lovecraft's cosmic despair, the abyss keeps shifting shape. Yet it always asks the same question: what lies beyond the edges of what we can endure or even understand? And here's the shocking part. These aren't just stories, they're reflections of us. Every time you dream of falling, every time you confront your own shadow, you're touching the edge of that same abyss. But if literature shows us the abyss as fear and fascination, psychology takes us one step deeper. What happens when the abyss is not out there but inside our own minds? What if the abyss isn't just out there in myths and stories, but inside of you? Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, believed that the abyss lives in our unconscious. He called it the shadow. All those parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to face. Think about it. The anger you pretend you don't feel, the desires you bury, the fears you don't admit even to yourself. That's your shadow, and it waits in the abyss. Jung warned that if we ignore it, the shadow doesn't disappear, it grows stronger. We project it onto others, seeing in them the flaws we refuse to accept in ourselves. But if we're brave enough to descend to face it, something powerful happens. Integration, the journey into the abyss of the psyche, is not about destruction, it's about wholeness. When you confront your shadow, you don't just see your darkness, you also recover lost energy, creativity, and authenticity. You stop running from yourself, but make no mistake, this descent is not easy. Jung described it as a kind of inner death, a stripping away of illusions, a confrontation with the demons within. Yet on the other side there is freedom, the possibility of becoming fully human, fully alive. And here's the bigger truth. Jung didn't see the abyss as just a personal struggle. He spoke of the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of archetypes and symbols shared by all humanity. Which means that when you confront your own abyss, you're also tapping into something timeless, something every culture has wrestled with. The shadow, the abyss. The confrontation with the self. It's the same story in new clothes, the same battle every hero must face before transformation. But Jung wasn't the only one who saw the abyss as a stage of inner growth. Mystics, saints, and seekers across spiritual traditions spoke of something eerily similar. Every true spiritual path, no matter the tradition, has a moment of darkness, a season where everything you once relied on, faith, comfort, even your sense of self, seems to vanish. The Christian mystic St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul. It feels like abandonment, emptiness, silence, as if the divine itself has disappeared. And yet, mystics insist this stage is not punishment, it is preparation. Why? Because in the abyss, the false self dies. The illusions, the attachments, the old identities all stripped away. What remains is raw, naked spirit. And from that emptiness, a deeper connection with the divine can finally emerge. Other traditions echo this same truth. In Buddhism, suffering dukkha is not an obstacle, but the very doorway to awakening. In Hinduism, Maya, the illusion of reality, must be pierced to see Brahman, the ultimate truth. Different languages, same experience, the soul must descend into darkness before it can rise into light. And here's the paradox: when you are in the abyss, it feels endless. You believe you'll never escape. But looking back, those who endure it often say the abyss was the very thing that set them free. Would you dare to see your own despair that way, not as failure, but as the threshold of transformation? But for some seekers, the abyss wasn't just a metaphor. In the world of occult and mystical practice, it was seen as a very real trial, a passage that only the boldest dared to cross. In the world of mysticism and the occult, the abyss is not just an idea, it is a test, the most dangerous, demanding trial on the spiritual path. Occultists like Aleister Crowley describe the abyss as the chasm between the human and the divine. To cross it meant facing the complete dissolution of the ego, the death of everything you thought you were. Fail, and you risk madness. Succeed, and you awaken as something entirely new. In the Kabbalistic tree of life, the abyss separates the lower spheres of human experience from the higher realms of divine wisdom. To pass through it, the seeker must abandon every certainty, every concept of identity, and step into the unknown with nothing but trust. But there is a guardian, an enemy said to await those who dare. Crowley called him Choronzon, the demon of dispersion. Not a monster with claws, but the living embodiment of distraction, fragmentation, and chaos. Choronzon is the voice that whispers, "You cannot hold yourself together. You are nothing." Crowley himself claimed to face Choronzon in the Algerian desert in a terrifying ritual hour that nearly broke him. He described the experience as a battle not with some outside devil, but with the deepest fears of his own psyche. And here's the lesson: to cross the abyss is not to defeat some external foe, it is to master yourself. To hold your purpose steady even as your identity shatters. To pass through chaos and emerge whole. This is why occultists called the successful traveler a master of the temple. Because on the other side of the abyss lies not destruction, but rebirth, the alignment of the self with something greater, something universal. But is this really so different from what we've seen in philosophy, psychology, and spirituality? Not at all. Each in their own way, they tell us the same truth. The abyss is the ultimate trial of human existence. And if you survive it, you don't come back the same. So, what does this all mean for us today? Why should the abyss matter to you right now in your everyday life? So, after all this philosophy, psychology, literature, mysticism, what does the abyss really mean for you? Here's the truth. The abyss is not just in books or myths. It's in your life. It's in every moment of doubt, every loss, every time you look in the mirror and wonder, who am I really? The abyss is that silence after heartbreak. It's the fear before a major decision. It's the darkness of not knowing if you'll make it through. And yet, it is also the place of transformation. Kierkegaard told us the abyss pushes us to a leap of faith. Nietzsche said it challenges us to create new values. The Bible showed it as chaos under divine power. Jung revealed it as the shadow we must face within. Mystics called it the dark night before the dawn, and the occult saw it as the trial that births a new self. Different voices. One message: the abyss is not the end. It's the beginning. When you face your fears, when you stop running from your own shadow, when you accept the unknown instead of fleeing from it, you discover strength you didn't know you had. You find clarity. You find freedom. So I'll leave you with this question. When the abyss calls you, and it will you turn away? Or will you dare to step into the darkness and find who you truly are? Because sometimes, the only way to the light is straight through the dark.